Your best worst celebrity encounter? My sister was waiting tables in NYC. And ended up serving Patrick Stewart. She didn't want to bother him. So she just did her job. But at the end of the night she told him how much she had enjoyed seeing him in a production of Hamlet that year, 2008. And that she hoped he was planning to do more theater in the US. My sister was prepared to leave it at that. But apparently, he was so thrilled at someone who wanted to talk about his theater work, as opposed to Star Trek, that he ended up talking to my sister for a while about his experiences on stage. Just a really nice guy who loves acting. I liked the film he did about ladies' clothes falling off. I had pre-sale tickets to a Nine Inch Nails show in Atlanta a few summers ago. The system was set so that you could only pick up your tickets at will call if you bought pre-sale. Whoever wound up running the will call booth was dumber than an emu, and a couple dozen of us wound up missing half of the NIN set. To make amends, Reznor his PR people gave us free pit tickets to the show in Charlotte. A free chartered bus for travel. Free admission to soundcheck. And the opportunity to meet the band before the show. When I finally met Trent, he apologized one more time. Bruce Willis. I was out playing golf with a buddy one day when I heard another golfer call up from behind asking he could join us. We said sure, and as he got closer we realized it was Bruce Willis. We played 9 holes with him. He's a pretty good golfer. Then he bought each of us a beer afterwards. Awesome guy. Deleted. I walked past Conan O'Brien on a street corner in Greenwich Village, NYC. I am a huge fan. So I double back to say hello. Conan was with his wife. This was approx 2 weeks before the NBC fiasco went public. So he was probably stressing about that, and I was with 2 stoned friends. So I'd forgive Coco for being dismissive. But he was not. He was as friendly, approachable, and genuine as he appears on the show. If not more. He gave us several minutes of attention. He spoke to us. Looked at our eyes. Listened. Joked. He was the fucking man. TLDR, Conan is awesome. He knew. I was at Matsuhisa in La having some awesome sushi. I looked up and saw Cheech Marin across the room staring directly at me. I looked down and had another piece of sushi and then took another peek across the room and Cheech is still staring right at me. I'm thinking WTF for a few minutes, and then I take a look behind me and there are 2 incredibly hot blondes at the bar. I gave him a subtle thumbs up and he tipped his glass slightly in acknowledgement. You the man. Cheech. If only every time you looked up he was a little bit closer. Like that cat video. Some location scouts decided to use my parents' house for a couple scenes in the Steve Martin, Laura Dern, Helena Bonham Carter movie Novocaine. My dad was and is a pretty good banjo player. And he asked Steve to sign 2 of his banjos. He did. But then they jammed for about 20 minutes in our living room. Helena Bonham Carter sitting on the floor fawning over Steve Martin and half the crew standing around watching as well. It was super cool. And here he is. In my parents' old living room. 1. http imgur. Comkissoff. JPG. Paris Hilton. Met her at the premiere of The L Word. She could not have been nicer. Introduced herself. Asked about what my friends and I all did. Seemed genuinely interested. Chatted for a bit. She had water in between her drinks so as not to get drunk. The only part about her that sucked were all the leeches that came with her trying to glom onto her fame. When she wasn't being constantly interrupted by people demanding photos and autographs. I found her very down to earth and clever. The whole shit she does to be famous seems to just be an act. I never thought of her as an idiot again. The whole shit she does to be famous seems to just be an act. I never thought of her as an idiot again. I've wondered about this for a while now. Her celebrity persona just feels too stupid to be real. Deleted. Not my story, but it's too good not to post. A friend of mine was visiting California when he ran into Dave Chappelle at a hotel. My friend and a few others realized who he was and went to approach him for a picture. Dave was near the elevators and shoved a Twix in his mouth so he couldn't talk like in the commercials, then hopped on and shut the doors. Fucking hilarious. I was partying in New York. And Bill Murray comes up behind me and whispers in my ear, "No one will ever believe you." And walks away. Bill Murray is notorious for picking up on young chicks in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. When my roommate got a job at a bar out there, her manager told her in all seriousness that if Bill Murray came in and hit on her that she should under no circumstances sleep with him. I had just walked into the Whole Foods in Austin when I heard a commotion near the entrance behind me. I turned around and saw a tall blonde shirtless man. He was jacked and handsome. Also, he was being asked to leave because he wasn't wearing any shoes and it was store policy. I knew who it was underneath that scraggly beard. Matthew McConaughey, the patron saint of Texas. I went out to my truck and picked up a pair of sandals I had left there from a trip to the beach. That was the day I solved his munchies crisis. And lost my favorite pair of sandals. Alright. My wife worked for Bill Clinton in his Harlem office. Bill has the top floors but the bottom ones are for distributing social security and unemployment checks. People have to wait in line in the lobby to then go up and get their checks. One day Brad Pitt and Angelina were supposed to be coming in for a meeting. They were about 20 minutes late when someone decided to check on them. Turns out they were waiting in the line, even though they didn't have to, because they didn't want to be rude and cut in front of all the other people. How can two people be that attractive and that nice? It is not fair. OMG. I really read. For Bill Clinton in his harem office. Best, eating breakfast next to Johnny Cash at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis hitting him with a straw wrapper. I was 7 at the time so I didn't think it was awesome then. But hearing the story now? Uber cool. I was doing that thing where you blow the wrapper off your straw and shoot it at someone. I was aiming for my parents. But the damn wrapper just went wherever it wanted and flew right in front of Johnny Cash and landed on his plate. My parents made me apologize and apparently he tossed a napkin at me in retaliation. If only I had been old enough to appreciate how amazing that was. Worst, ate breakfast next to Gary Coleman at a Cracker Barrel. Nuff said. Deleted. That's like meeting Jesus. Holy shit. When I was about 9 years old I went with my dad to a charity golf event hosted by Tiger Woods. My dad knew a lot of people and I was able to get almost every famous person's autograph. We saw Tiger Woods walking near us and I yelled for him asking him for his autograph. Me, Tiger can I get your autograph? Tiger, walks over looks me dead in the eyes no then walks off. He was the only person that wouldn't give me an autograph. I got Hercules' autograph. Phil Nicholson and many more. I imagine you're pretty satisfied with how Tiger's life has been going. I went to the Comedy Store for a show. I went to use the restroom, a number 1 if you must know, and as soon as I exited, someone yelled, "This guy just took a shit." Turns out it was Tom Green. Did you give him the finger? Beastie Boys. In 1988 I was in 8th grade or so and we were hanging around downtown skateboarding when we decided to skate around the Coliseum. Since we were young and poor we did not even think twice about the billboard showing that Beastie Boys were playing that night with Fishbone. So we continued to skate for a while then these guys come out back and asked to use our boards. Holy shizbacles it was the Beastie Boys. We hung out for a bit and skated and let them use our boards then they just went back in. We were so stoked but still no one believed our story. Even my brother who went to the concert later that night. Haha. That sounds like it would be a MTV commercial from the 80s. I actually met Yao Ming years ago and he was probably one of the nicest guys ever. I figured he'd just say a few things and leave but he stuck around and chatted with me for at least 10 minutes. I was really sad the day he retired. Did he do the face? Big Hoss from Porn Stars. If you can call him a celebrity. He is a douche. You want an autograph? Lem go see my friend. Guy knows a lot about autographs. I saw Jack White, Meg White, and Renee Zellweger, SP, leaving an adult bookstore in Toronto. My friend proclaimed, "Hey, you're Jack White." He smiled. And they got in their hired car and left. I saw Jack White, Meg White, and Renee Zellweger, SP, leaving an adult bookstore in Toronto. This sounds like the start of a joke. Not so much as an encounter. But it was kind of funny and I still laugh about it. I managed to work my way to the front of a Rob Zombie concert at the beginning of the show. He was doing the typical "Are you ready to rock" and getting everyone amped up and everyone was screaming and all as usual. Anyways he looks down, makes eye contact, and points right at me. I won't lie. I just froze for a second. Made the devil's horn symbol and yelled "Yarak." He waved me off dismissively with a PFFT and went on with his set. I felt like I let Rob Zombie down. Awkward. Isaac Asimov had a big crush on my mother. I saw him all the time at her Mensa events. I remember him as a cool, funny-looking old guy with the great stories. Isaac Asimov had a crush on anything with tits. Met Bruce Campbell at a film festival and he invited my friends and I to join him for dinner. Really great down-to-earth guy. Deleted. Removed. I was Ralph Fiennes' cocktail waitress. He was a bit sleazy flirty and I liked it. I don't know if it's because I'm from the UK, or because I am generally culturally ignorant, but I have no idea who these people are. I'm American and I've never heard of half these people. I used to play a lot of hockey when I was younger. And when Wayne Gretzky was traded to the Nye Rangers in 1996, he and Mark Messier got a bunch of kids from my hockey rink to play street hockey with them for a Sports Illustrated photo shoot. I was lucky enough to be one of those kids. Wayne and Mark were the nicest guys in the world. They ended up giving us their sticks, gloves, jerseys, etc. Real class acts. I've seen Gretzky a number of times since then and he's always been super nice. I was in Grand Rapids having lunch with my so. I looked over at a couple of guys at another table and said, "Hey, that guy looks like a gay Nick Swardson." The guy had a weird mustache and was wearing some very odd clothing. We laughed about it and went on with our meal. We were getting ready to leave and they were leaving as well. It turned out it really was Nick Swardson. I told him how much I liked his stand-up and he appreciated it. After we parted ways, my so points out that the other guy he was with was Jesse Eisenberg. The two of them were in town filming, 30 minutes or less, http://www.imdb.com title TT 1,622,547. TL. Dr. Sometimes gay Nick Swardson really is Nick Swardson. And he eats lunch with Jesse Eisenberg. Best, I saw Owen Wilson at a U2 concert. I called out Carcore from about 50 yards away, Bottle Rocket reference. He immediately turned around looking for who called. I pointed at him. And he give me the two arms extended pointing at you cause you're the man move. Worst, saw Octomom at Disneyland. That is all. Met Flight of the Conchords a few years back in a bar in Ann Arbor. Me. Jermaine was pretty uninterested in talking to me and my buddy. But Brett was genuinely a nice guy and a lot of fun to talk to. He suggested I switch careers to build robot cars. Camped next to Ricky, Rob Wells, from Trailer Park Boys, in Nova Scotia. We drank with him and smoked with him. Best encounter. Fuck off Leahy. I met Ben Folds after a show in Ohio. It was winter. And it was damn cold. And he was just hanging out outside talking to people and joking around. He was so awesome and the show was amazing too. 10 Things I Hate About You was shot at my high school. I never met him but nobody had anything good to say about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Everyone said Heath was a real class act though. You went to that school? That place is beautiful. I have quite a few. Worked for a local radio station as a promotion girl and quickly became the coordinator of all the other girls. Not hard. Be sexy and friendly and on time. Done. Working a large multi-band show when a big black dude rolls up and asks to speak to me. Wants to know if myself and the other girls would like to dance on stage with Snoop. Yes please, good exposure for the station and why the hell not? Cut to dancing to that beautiful girl song with 15 other girls and we all go to leave the stage and one of the pars say no, Snoop wants you two to stay. Dance another song with Snoop. Hung out after and drank Heinekens with him. There was pot everywhere in the green room. He was really nice and didn't even hit on us. From what I've heard. He's very committed to his wife. And she'd cut him off at the knees if he did anything improper. D. I grew up in Los Angeles. So I have a shitload of these. But this is probably my fav. I met Hilary Swank at the rap party for $1 Million Baby because my boyfriend at the time was a par on the set. It was an informal atmosphere so everyone was just chatting. Enjoying some beverages and munching on some finger foods. Somebody introduced me to her. And I said, "Hi. I'm Gingerquist Rousebro." She replied, "Hi. I'm Hilary." Like there was a chance I didn't fucking know who she was. She was unbelievably sweet and down to earth. For the record. It was also her birthday that day. If I recall correctly. She's extremely beautiful in real life. Much more so than in pictures. Best, going to high school with Miss USA 2011. Worst, grinding on John McCain in a tightly packed elevator for 30 seconds. Deleted. Best, getting to talk to, and then months later get picked on from stage by Patton Oswalt. Worst, getting tongue-tied and sounding like a moron when I met Mike Patton before a Mr. Bungle show. Lots of Pattons. Chris Farley on his last movie before he died. I met him on set. My father was playing a small role in the film. He was so nice. Loud and bubbly as always seen on TV. He signed autographs for everyone including me. Jamie Lee Curtis was also there and she was just as nice. I don't know why she was there though she wasn't in the movie. I used to be an extra actress as a kid and I met a lot of actors. I would also have to say Danny DeVito is super nice because he let me fall asleep in his chair on set for Jack the Bear. I was dressed up as Raggedy Ann for the Halloween scene. Me and my buddy used to go to bookstores in Winter Park, FL, Orlando. We see Carrot Top walking into the bookstore. I tell my buddy I see him. Like the biggest nerd in the world he rolls down the window and waves and giggles like a schoolgirl. For your information, this isn't the skinny Carrot Top. This is the buff as hell Carrot Top. He realized how stupid he looked and sounded after the fact. We saw him inside the store looking at muscle magazines. Fucking awkward. Borders? He lives right the road from there. My friend lives in one of those giant houses on the lake and we took his boat out one day and he pointed out Carrot Top's house. I've known Richard Cheese since I was born. I guess. I sat next to Margaret Cho on an airplane. Helped get her bag into the overhead. She didn't say thank you. I talked to Bill Nye on a tech support phone call once. I couldn't fix his Mac and he was mad. I also saw Wisconsin's US Senator Mr. Dave Abay in his underpants once. I've lived a full life. Breaking is a property of Max. Bill. 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 Bill Nye the science guy. Deleted. Eric Idle. Tell me more. Deleted. Best, I work for a non-profit in New Orleans. And a local musician with some international acclaim was at one of our events. He saw me with a great soda. And asked me to get him one. I went back to the coolers only to find there weren't any left. When I came back and told him, he exasperatedly said, "Of course there's no great soda left, this is New Orleans." Harry Connick Jr. Saw Rick Pitino in the Miami airport on my way back to Boston. I asked him if he knew which door Larry Bird was walking through. He flipped me off. Went to an Obama rally in 2008. Me and my friends were towards the front and got to shake his hand. When he went to go shake my friend's hand she blurted out, "I'm in love with you," he said. "Why thank you very much," and moved on to the next person. Best, chatting with Leonard Cohen and showing him around the back room at the bookstore. Worst, Kira Sidgwick holding out 2 hands filled with change and simply dumping it into my hands because she apparently couldn't figure out how much her magazine cost. It was sad and upsetting. Not mine. But heard from a friend. We were in NYC seeing a play that Martin Short was in or directed or something. Anyways. We catch him as he's leaving. And we got a chance for a picture with him. As my friend is taking the picture. In order to get the greatest reaction shot ever. He goes, Mr. Short, I loved you in Clifford." The look was priceless. A few years ago. I was working at a P.F. Chang's. Bon Jovi came in with a few of his people and there was a huge group of middle-aged women following him around the shopping district the restaurant was in, maybe 10-15 women. It was about 2:30 and he was playing a concert that night. I didn't say much other than my usual spiel. Since it was company policy not to bother celebrities. After they had paid. I asked him, "So what's it like being Bon Jovi?" He replied, "Fucking awesome." Everyone laughed and they were on their way. Deleted. I'm friends with him IRL and he's always like that. Super nice. Never wants to let anyone down. Especially his fans. More than once I've seen him tell his manager that he wants to stay longer to hang out, sign stuff. Awesome true Bill Murray story. Here. By far the coolest celebrity encounter ever. It was SXSW 2010 in Austin, Texas. My friends and I were outside a popular music venue called Stubbs after seeing a few bands play. And we were discussing what show we were going to next. All of a sudden, A man grabs my friend from behind and pops his head over his shoulder. It was Bill Murray. All he said was, "Your friends will never believe you," and took off. We were in shock and just burst out laughing afterward, hardly believing what just happened. Deleted. I met Jimmy Carter on an airplane once, but was too hungover to realize who he was. He introduced himself to everyone on the plane I was on, but because I didn't recognize him, I thought he was just a stuck-up rich guy overestimating his importance. All I managed to get out was an awkward good afternoon when he shook my hand. I read that as, but he was too hungover to realize who he was. Poor Jimmy. Deleted. Christopher Mintz, McClothyn, sniped my cab in Vegas of New York, New York. He said sorry, and remains neutral in my book. I met Kerry and Grant from Mythbusters. Pretty much had lunch with them. Couldn't think of anything interesting to talk about. So, why do you all hate myths so much? Worst, Christopher Lloyd was inches away from running me down on his bicycle. Best, Danny DeVito. Less than 5 minutes later. Was super cool. Somehow I pictured this as DeVito chasing Lloyd. Possibly on a unicycle. Anyway. That's cool. I'd let Christopher Lloyd run me over. Best, met Wavy Gravy. Who was dressed up as a clown. emceeing an outdoor concert at our school. Trippy dude. Worst, worked at a call center. Spoke to Zsa Zsa Gabor. She wanted to do the feed the children thing. She was sweet and ever so sophisticated. Dalink. Why was that the worst? I worked at a call center. My dad once got Wavy Gravy to sign his rubber chicken. I had brunch with a couple of friends in DC. And then we decided to go drunk shopping at H&M afterwards. John Lithgow was there shopping with two women who I assume were his wife and daughter. Of all the places to run into John Lithgow. J.K. Rowling and the cheese aisle of Asda in Edinburgh. Said hi and I was a fan. She said hi and thanks. I cursed myself for being unable to think of a Harry Potter related cheese comment. Shaun White accidentally punched me in the face and split my lip open. Details. I have a few. But the best time I ever had hanging out with an actor was playing pool with Matthew Broderick. I really wanted to play pool one night. And my boyfriend took me to this billiards place on Houston St. Soho Billiards. He used to play there a lot and called some of his friends in to come play with us. Turned out his friend Matt, this was early on in our relationship, was Matthew Broderick. He's a cool guy. In New York City. It's really easy to meet a celebrity. I sat courtside at the Lakers Timberwolves game in 2000 when I was 10 back when Shaq, Kobe, and yes, Dennis Rodman was on the team. After the game, I ran to the point where the players go back into the locker room before security got there. I ended up shaking Shaq's hand and saying hi to him, and Dennis Rodman gave me a little bump, and when I looked back at who bumped into me, he gave me a little wink. This was the defining moment in my life at the time. Deleted. I've got a few, but the funniest one has to be meeting Pat Morita aka Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid, at a hotel lobby in Beverly Hills when I was probably about 14 or so. He was drunk out of his mind, stumbling around, talking to my family and I. It seemed he would have been content talking to us the rest of the night, but finally we said we had to go. Pretty hilarious. R.I.P. He was funny when I met him too. Not drunk. Though, I don't think. About 10 years ago my brother and I were serving hors d'oeuvres at an event, mostly minor celebrities I didn't recognize. When I saw Pat Morita enter the room, I ran across the room to tell my brother, and the two of us descended upon him with our trays. He was amused by our stumbling efforts and took my tray out of my hands and said, "All for me? Thank you." My stepdad told me about his Air Force days in San Diego on the US Enterprise and how in the mid-80s they wanted to shoot a movie. The movie? Motherfucking Top Gun. But everyone thought that Tom Cruise was an asshole. He didn't sign anything. Wouldn't take any pictures. Was rude and short with everyone on board. So to get revenge they removed his ejection seat during his flights. I think they might have done something to Anthony Edwards' seat too. I waited on Tony Hawk, Matt Hoffman and a bunch of other X Games athletes at the same table. They were very nice and left a great tip. I went to visit my alma mater back in the spring with a couple of my former teammates. We went for an annual tradition called Green Beer Day. Turns out George Clooney was filming for the Ides of March and we got to meet him in a local pub. It was pretty cool being up at 4 AM drinking green beer and talking to George Clooney. And that's all I have to say about that. My stay used to be a waiter in Los Angeles. He said that John Lovitz was hella nice. Will Ferrell is a wonderful tipper and person. And Felicia Day was a huge bitch. Charlie Murphy. I was with my cousin Jamil and Ely, who are both, like me, olive white Lebanese boys. Basically white. Jamil worked for Charlie and he introduces his brother Ely. Ely says, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Murphy." Charlie got real silent and didn't return the greeting to my cousin Ely. My cousin Jamil asks, "Charlie, what's wrong? Did my brother offend you? Did he do something wrong?" Charlie got all quiet. He was like, "Nah, he didn't do anything wrong. It's just, how am I gonna have a name like Charlie and your mother gave you both nigger names like Jamil and Ely?" At that point we all broke out laughing. Best example of this I can think of is two kids I went to high school with. Both black and their names were, I shit you not, Akomi, Okawumi, and his younger brother, Larry. Deleted. I was wandering the back streets of Japan where they have a lot of urban clothing stores and whatnot with my brother and then GF. These stores in the side streets are usually never crowded as not many people know about them. We walked into a store and spotted Justin Timberlake looking at some shoes. We waited outside the store where we saw his posse of bodyguards right up the street waiting for him. As he exited we asked if he really was Justin Timberlake. He said yes and continued to walk away from us. My GF wanted an autograph so she asked him for one. He totally ignored her with his pretentious asshole attitude and walked away with his posse. It's not like there was a huge crowd of PPL around either. Lost what little respect I had for the guy after this. I'm going to go shopping where hopefully no one will notice me. I have to take my bodyguards due to various contracts and insurance. So, I'm going to walk away from this guy and his girlfriend because I've had a rough day and I don't want to get into anything. They're following me, asking for autographs and soon more people will notice. I'll keep walking. Damn. Blue Pig thinks I'm a pretentious asshole. Oh well. I'll just go wallow in my millions and have lots of sex with Hollywood's hottest leading ladies. Woe is me. A friend of mine crashed his car through the wall of one of the Futurama producers. He told him he was a huge fan. I was in McDonald's and noticed that Doug Gilmore, the hockey player, was standing in front of me. Then I noticed some lady telling her friend that's Dave Gilmore. Do go on. Viggo Mortensen asked me what my name was. I told him. And his response was, "What kind of a name is that? Dude. Your name is Viggo." When I met Gavin DeGraw, he said you can shake my hand if you want to. I was like, okay. Art's story is fucking awesome. Thanks. The only pic of the experience I got was a crappy cell phone one taken at the party. http:// imgur.com dvwqn. JPG, I'm on the right making a goofy face while Danny was being serious. I was at a club in Nye, can't remember the name. We were hopping around. It was kinda crowded and I felt a hand come around my waist. And a female whispered in my ear, "Excuse me. Can I get by?" I turned to say of course. And there I am gazing into the eyes of Liv Tyler. My nose was about 2 inches from her nose. Her hand still on my waist. And I froze. She asked me again. I snapped out of my trance and said, UHH. Sure. Then she passed by and faded into the crowd like a mirage. That would have been the perfect opportunity to yell "You shall not pass." Deleted. Ian Shiek and Nikolai Volkov with my 5-year-old. Autograph 2. I personally served ice cream to Mr. T when I was working at an ice cream store in high school. We didn't have the ice cream he wanted, butter pecan, that day. So he said, "I pity the fool that ain't have no butter pecan." He came back the next day, after he knew that flavor was made, just to have it. I smoked pot with Zach Galifianakis. I had coffee with Kim Deal, the Breeders and Pixies bassist. Both here in Asheville, NC within the past year. Worst, I was getting off of Monsters Plantation at Six Flags over Georgia, when security suddenly told us we needed to wait by the fountain in front of the attraction. They wouldn't tell us why. But eventually fucking Usher and his kids come up. Guy didn't even acknowledge us. And we were left standing around like morons while he took his time getting on the ride. That was dick enough, but then, later that day, my family was next in line to ride the Canyon Blaster. When fucking Usher shows up again and gets to cut in front of us and ride the coaster alone, so Usher dicked me over twice in one day at Six Flags. I was at an upscale nightclub in Miami right after Zoolander had come out. Across the room, I see Owen Wilson wearing an Aerosmith t-shirt while the rest of us guys there were forced to wear shirts. He was hitting on this girl and my girlfriend and her friend started waving at him across the room. When he looked, they both pointed at me and I gave him my best Zoolander face. He got a big smile on his face and did it right back to me. True story. At a celebrity golf tournament, following Tom Arnold, Heather Locklear, and Leslie Nielsen, Tom Arnold goes off into the bushes to take a leak. After a couple minutes, he screams out, "Heather, I found a snake, come quick." Heather, who apparently has a fascination with wildlife, follows Tom back into the bushes. A couple minutes later Tom Arnold walked back to the tee with a giant red handprint on his left cheek. Heather looked very embarrassed. Leslie just sat in the golf cart looking awesome. David Letterman once gave my grandmother finger. I'm from the same town as Dave Chappelle, and have run into him several times. He's always been super nice, holding doors open for ladies, etc. Most recently, I went back home. I live out of state now, and was sitting on the back patio of a quiet bar with some friends. A friend of a friend showed up. Sits in the shadows such that I can only see him as a tall, lanky black guy. And we all start chatting. About 15 minutes later I realize it's Dave Chappelle. I guess he was drunk enough that his voice sounded different. And I was drunk enough that I didn't pick up on it. And I just didn't recognize it. Super nice guys though. Everyone in town loves him. I was waiting for my flight in Albuquerque, NM about 12 years ago, and at that time there was an outside courtyard for smoking. Went to go smoke and this tatted dude came outside and sat down next to me and bummed a cigarette. I look at him and it's Corey Haim. I'm like, dude, double switch Lost Boys, and we hung out for a while bullshitting and riding my skateboard until I had to go. Amazing. How on earth did you manage to skateboard after shitting out an entire bull? When I was about 9, I think I was 9, I convinced my mom to take me to see All That S Live tour. It was pretty much the coolest thing ever as a kid to see those people perform live. But what made it even cooler is that the next day I was going on a flight to visit my dad, and lo and behold, who was on the plane ride with me? The entire All That cast. Needless to say, it was pretty much the best plane ride ever, and I was like a puppy around them the entire time, but I'd say that was the best celebrity encounter of my entire life. Doubt anything would top that. I've told this a few times before. I worked at a Japanese restaurant in Vegas, and in comes O.J. Simpson with a couple lady friends. He came in town to attend his trial for stealing his collectibles, maybe around 2009 to 2010. I came over to drop off some miso soup. He takes a look at me and goes, "Goddamn, that's a lot of hair," scruffles my hair and laughs. Then he hands me $20. He seemed like a pretty nice guy though. Elizabeth Smart in an elevator. WTF are you supposed to say to someone who is famous for being molested as a child? I was on a plane flying from Baltimore to Atlanta at 10 a.m. on the morning. Somehow I got bumped up to first class. The guy next to was drinking Bloody Marys, one after another. At 10 to 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, as we started my descent, he proceeded to tell me he was on his way home from a concert in Baltimore with Kid Rock. I said, "Oh really? Do you like Kid Rock?" He said, "We opened for them." I asked, "What's the name of your band?" He replied, "Lynyrd Skynyrd." I was surrounded by the Lynyrd Skynyrd band in first class, and got to talk about their history, including the plane crash when a portion of their band died. I sat next to Billy Powell, their keyboardist, who died less than a year after we met, 2009. Great guy. Rip Billy and Lynyrd Skynyrd. Your music is legendary. There's something so wrong about Lynyrd Skynyrd opening for Kid Rock. I've posted this before, but here goes. Friend of mine was a meteorologist working at a TV station in Pittsburgh, and David Boreans walks into his office. Apparently his dad also works at this TV station and he's trying to find him. My friend apologizes for not recognizing him immediately and says, "Sorry, I don't watch a lot of your stuff." David Boreans laughs and says that's okay. Neither do I. In high school they filmed the movie in my home. Jeff Goldblum was in it as actor and producer. I want to say the film was shot in 1990. I was an extra in the movie and nabbed a photo of Jeff from the hot set. Chillin' like a boss. http://farm4 static flickr.com/3534/3,728,058,539 car 2z jpg zz=1 deleted. Not me, but my housemate met Helena Bonham Carter a few years ago at AskReddit races. He was serving drinks and she came up for a vodka and tonic. He served her and as she was about to leave casually stated, "I thought you were great in Kill Bill." "That was Uma Thurman," was her response. "Ah. Sweeney Todd." She nodded, smiled and walked away. He then proceeded to visualize how many times he could smash himself in the face with a bottle of Smirnoff before he could forget the entire incident. I drank moonshine backstage with Jesco White, the dancing outlaw. I sat next to Ron Jeremy on a plane from Carter TX. It was a week after I got a chemical peel, and some of the skin on my face was black and peeling off. I was quite embarrassed about this, so I didn't talk to him until the end of the flight. He told me I had pretty eyes. LOL. I then asked him to sign my plane ticket, where he wrote, "Hey C, I find you appealing, love. Ron." Bahahahaha. I had these extra access passes to a Metallica show a few years ago and I went with my dad and a couple of his friends. So we're hanging out in this shitty area where the Islander hockey team comes out of the locker room from, and we see James Hetfield just standing there about 30 minutes or so before the show actually started. My dad walked over and asked if he could get a picture with him. James just turned and asked, "I don't know. Can you?" and walked away. As Russell Brand said in Get Him to the Greek, "Go you Napster, you Danish twat." A co-worker of mine saw Summer Glau in a restaurant and didn't try to get a picture with her. What an asshole. Met Mindy Kaling at a comedy show hosted by our college. Sweetest, funniest person ever. Now my favorite office celebrity. I once had a brief, completely starstruck, once-in-a-lifetime encounter with Michael Jackson back when I was 14, 23 now, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. There wasn't much of an exchange since I couldn't even bring myself to form words. I only managed to shake his hand for a split moment. He was whisked away and it was over so quickly. Can't say it was the best or worst based on the encounter itself, but seeing how Michael Jackson is probably one of the most iconic celebrities that have ever lived, it was awesome and will probably remain at the top of my encounters for the rest of my life. I met William Gibson at a book signing for Year Zero, the last book he wrote. Neuromancer has been one of my favorite books for the longest time and I have a tattoo of Molly Millions on the back of my leg. Got to show it to him and he liked it, mentioning how it was probably the closest rendition of her he's seen, so that was pretty awesome. I've spoken to him a few times when he would come shopping at the store I worked at. He's super nice and down to earth. I was at the comedy store in La many years ago seeing a few comedy acts. I go to the bathroom to pee, and right next to me at the urinal is Robin Williams. Like an idiot, I just said to him, "You're Robin Williams." He looks at me and says, "You shouldn't talk to people while they piss." And that was that. We both finished without another word. Dan Jacobs, lead guitar for Atreyu. I was a designated driver for a upscale weekend-long party in the Hamptons and he was there. Most of the people were unbearably difficult to talk to. Typical stuck-up rich people, and I couldn't relate to any topics that came up. I was able to shoot the shit with Dan about anything and he seemed really down to earth. The guests talked about stocks, polo, schooling, fine wine, art, and yachting. He talked about Costco, burgers, booze, cheap dates, late nights, nights, and women. Jason Alexander's son was one of my bunkmates at sleepaway camp. I told Jason Alexander I thought he was funny in Seinfeld, and he looked really disappointed. Edit. This was on visiting day. Saw NPH in a Sam's Club in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, buying copious amounts of liquor. I wish there was more to this story. I ran Jonathan Coaten's merch table at a show once, and got to hang out with him and Paul and Storm for a couple hours after the show while they counted their inventory. They were all cool as shit. And really funny and personable. The table was ridiculously busy and the neckbeards really wanted some CDs and DVDs that weren't in stock. So there was this messy system of signing up for the stuff to be sent out later. And I think we may have miscounted the money. Because I saw them huddling together and talking about it. But if we did screw it up, they didn't say anything to us because we were volunteers. I was heading down to PAX last year by train from Vancouver to Seattle and would up sitting right beside Will Wheaton. We started talking and hung out for a few hours. He taught my brother and I how to play zombie dice and I kicked his ass at Tetris a few times. He was a really great guy. Had dinner with Tim Allen and close family friends. Turns out my friend's stepdad and Tim Allen were frat buddies back in the day and he was in town on a layover. He's downright hilarious in person. Very personable and polite. And a downright ordinary guy. Only complaint. He likes Bud Light. Come on man. Drink a real beer. Didn't happen to me and don't know if this is the best or worst. But it should be shared. Friend of a friend met Justin Timberlake in an NYC nightclub. They hooked up and were about to have sex. When he's balls deep. He holds and whispers into her ear. Justin's in you. Deleted. Saw Pauly Shore at a restaurant in San Diego. Did say anything to him. But our table was right beside his and we could hear him telling horribly and funny jokes to the people he was with. They would all laugh too hard. Or force fake laughs. It was a bit uncomfortable. Jessica Alba's father was our real estate agent back in California and set us up to meet her at the airport. Nothing really crazy happened. I did get a couple hugs though. So that was pretty sweet. I also met her at the time boyfriend. Michael Weatherly. Two of the nicest people you could ever meet. We took a bunch of pictures too. But I haven't seen them for years. When I find them I'll post them. I once saw Larry David outside a Sklotsky's arguing with a guy who had parallel parked too close and blocked him in. Rob Schneider. I don't know if any of you have seen Surf Ninjas. But when I ended up sitting next to Rob Schneider at a Blackhawks game I greeted him with a Kwanzaa. Dude. And he literally got a twinkle in his eye. He told my sister and I that we were literally the only two fans he's met that have watched and remembered that movie fondly. When I was about 12 years old I met Leno. Despite Reddit portraying him as the epitome of evil. He's actually a very nice guy. My uncle and I were dropping off parts for a Packard that Leno bought. He offered to show me his car collection and seemed genuinely delighted to meet a kid that was so interested in antique cars. What stands out most is the fact he spoke to me like I was an adult. Explaining the different body styles, makes, engine types, etc. Not realizing who he was. I tried selling the lead singer of Thursday tickets to his own show. Danny McBride and David Gordon Green went to my school. I got to talk to David for a little bit but I was incredibly nervous and felt like I was being pretentious talking about films with him. Jennifer Aniston doesn't know how to high-five when she's drunk. She kept grabbing my hand and trying to hold it. I had to show her at least 3 times how it was done. She was so confused. Delivered Forrest Whitaker's lunch to him when he came by my college to speak about Obama and the election in 2008. I got a picture with him and his wife. Also met Obama while working on his campaign. Got to tour his campaign plane. It was pretty sweet. Giselle Bundchen at my aunt's one Thanksgiving. She was dating a model from our town who was a friend of the family. Hido Turkoglu and Ryan Anderson at different restaurants in Winter Park. I am a huge Orlando Magic fan but was too nervous to introduce myself. Pretty sure nobody will ever see this. But I met Duff Goldman, Ace of Cakes, this year. He was standing in a roped-off area judging some cakes. A bunch of people were watching him do this. Myself included. When he got near me I raised my arm up and hollered, Duff. I'm your biggest fan. I'm 6'7". He didn't look at first. But everyone started laughing and he looked up and started laughing too. We talked briefly about how I probably was. Unless Shaq watches the show. Only celebrity I've met so far. But it took a lot of nerve. Was exhilarating and made my sister's day. It was her birthday. TLDR. Met Duff Goldman from Ace of Cakes. He's actually a really chill guy. Ace of Cakes was a lie. Deleted. Deleted. I meet Ben from Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. Sat next to him on a plane. Nice dude. I also sat behind Howard Dean. http://www. YouTube.com watch. V equals gdwadbfreemu, on another flight. That's about as famous as it gets when you grow up in Vermont. My band finds out that we are playing with McLovin's band that night. We were kind of thinking that it wasn't really him. But when we got there, lo and behold it was him. We wanted to take a picture with him, so my friend walks up to him and says, "You're Matt, right?" He says no. Chris, and we didn't speak to him for the rest of the night. I smoked bowls and dropped E with Donny Dumphy at a music festival. He didn't even perform. He was just there to get fucked up. Respect. A few years ago I was teaching computer summer camp in Seattle and we had Gabe Newell's kids. One day his wife came by to pick them up after camp and said Gabe had invited us to tour the Valve studio and that I should email him. I sent an email expecting an intern or secretary to respond and he got back to me personally in about 3 minutes. A couple days later some co-workers and I went up there and he met us at the door. Showed us around himself. Gave us a bunch of swag. Let us play a pre-release build of Left 4 Dead 2 and then bought us all dinner at a very expensive steakhouse. He didn't mention anything about episode 3 though. So I'm not sure if that should be my best or worst. I meet Judith O'Day Barbara from Night of the Living Dead at a zombie walk when I went to see Zombieland. She was pretty nice. So, it's December 2005. I'm walking down Spring Street in New York and I'm about to turn the corner when who do I see coming towards me all decked out in black? That's right, Luma Thurfican Reed. I'm a huge fan and I was 18 at the time and didn't know how to handle myself. I called out "Hey Lou" almost involuntarily. Without even diverting his gaze or slowing his pace. He responded with a flat "Go fuck yourself." I stood rooted to the spot. It was one of the coolest moments of my life. TLDR, Lou Reed told me to go fuck myself. Here are a couple in recent memory. Saw Conan O'Brien at a diner in CT when I was getting breakfast with my girlfriend. He was with his wife and kids, though. So I didn't say hi. One guy congratulated him on his show, this was only weeks ago, and it was incredibly awkward. Met Chris Hardwick and discussed comedy with him in NYC outside the W Hotel. He was waiting for a car to pick him up and we had a nice 10-minute chat about stand-up, his podcast, etc. Probably one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. Met LeVar Burton at LAX when I was younger, probably around 8. I was a huge fan of Reading Rainbow back then. So I was super shy around him, but he was super nice. Haven't really had a negative experience with someone famous. Ken Jennings is a member at the kids center that I work at. I told him that I loved his book and he was incredibly excited about. He's super nice and always says hello when he sees me working. Not mine. But a friend I work with met Harvey Keitel while delivering milk to a store. He talked to him briefly. And found out Harvey was visiting family that lived on the same road as him. For the next week or so. My friend would be mowing the lawn or something. And Harvey Keitel would drive down the road and wave to him. Worst, I saw Elvis Costello at a cafe in Park City during the Sundance Film Festival. I shyly approached him and said, "Excuse me. Are you Elvis Costello?" I realize that's not the most creative best way to approach a celebrity, but it's my first time seeing someone famous. So I was really nervous. I really like his music anyway. In a really annoyed, angry tone of voice. He denied he was Elvis Costello and said Elvis Costello was way older than him. I apologized and walked away embarrassed. It's possible that it wasn't really him. But I'm 90% sure it was. Besides, how many Elvis Costello lookalikes with British accents could there be at Sundance? Who knows? Maybe it wasn't him. I'd feel bad besmirching his name because of his jerky lookalike. Rod Stewart kicked a football in my mum's face. We were all doing a fundraising event at a classic car show called Concours d'Elegance. Jay Leno was there and bought some churros and stuff. We had a sign asking for tips as we get to keep 100% of the tips add up so to like 7% of what we sold. Everyone's there giving us tips and being super awesome. Jay Leno hands a $100. Takes changes. And then doesn't tip us. The douche.